counterplan or got evidence indicates that the struggle for racial equality may be a losing battle. We uphold the state action requirement, which can only be solved by overturning Morrison, since the Morrison decision necessarily upheld the civil rights cases, which said that private discrimination is acceptable, is legally sanctioned by the national government, which means that even state laws have comparative laws which they can fill in with the counterplan, which something is not yet by the counterplan. There's still a legal sanction on forms of private racism. They make an argument for federal judges are racist. There's no cause of action in the world of the status quo, which means that even if federal judges are racist, you don't even get the opportunity to bring your case. Our data evidence also says that you should overrule these cases simply because of the effect that they have on our society, that it makes it look like this form of racism is okay. They say that Morrison doesn't increase access. The Morrison decision upheld the state action doctrine that what is private is necessarily outside of states, which is something that can only be solved by overruling the counter, by overruling the plan. They do not have a justification for living on the books. The impact is our oil, which indicates it is a form of psychic harm, which should become more than a triad scenario because of its form of spirit injury, which is worse than unintentional slaughter. Our Tusabe evidence also indicates it upholds the IA, which is the base of subjugation. This is the internal link to their citizenship argument. The idea that we can differentiate populations as being one group of people, which are a certain color, one group of people which are a different color, which is the internal link to their whiteness argument. Our Ken Evans says that it fuels the politics of extermination because biopolitics is necessarily based on racism, and individual discrimination is tied to larger symbols of discrimination. This should serve as a tiebreaker for our ADA advantage. Will also serve as the ADA debate. They do not understand our argument. The challenge has already occurred, which means that we don't need to win our future challenge. Our choice, the Oaken evidence indicates that the Garrett decision was sufficient to hollow the ADA because it gives a form of state impunity because you cannot bring suits against individual states. Only an overruling on Section 5, which the plaintiffs can solve this because Section 5 would be able to trump the sovereign immunity clause, which is what our Garrett evidence says. In the world where it's hollow now, they can't really be able to change it since it's limited to things like domestic violence. Even if the states would be able to access, there's no state incentive, which was our Oaken evidence. There's no comparable laws, which means it's only a risk if they engage in a medical model. Our Goring evidence indicates that justice demands a social model because a medical model of disability is one which is necessarily eugenic because it says that you have a disease which you need to cure rather than you are discriminated against. They've also conceded versions 1 arguments that the state challenge is spill over, which means it only takes one state to spill over. The impact of our Elvin evidence that it is the politics of genocide, which is also the impact of their citizenship decide, which is the reason why if we're going to solve the to counterplan, you before our analysis, the state's counterplan debate. The first is the jurisdiction argument. They make an argument why the counterplan solves our citizenship argument. No, our resident evidence indicates the reason why it's bad to engage in these struggles in the state because it privatizes the impact. It says it is one of non-national concern, which is their argument about how our politics get redeployed, which means that gender violence is always viewed as trivial, which is an impact in our patriarchy and epistemology advantage. I'll explain this later. They've also conceded the second internal link, which is our family law argument. The Morrison court upheld the idea that women's issues are necessarily confined to the family, which is the reason why they're in traditional state jurisdiction. Even if the counterplan doesn't use this as its reasoning, the counterplan upholds this thinking about not overturning the Morrison decision. This centralizes women as only being women, or as only being mothers, daughters, wives, etc., rather than being individuals, which is impacted in our Peterson evidence. So we must not engage in gender neutrality, but rather we must invoke in a gender-sensitive lens. They've also conceded our McKinnon evidence that the only proven strategy for challenging gender equality is empirically going to higher sovereigns, which means that even if states could enact comparable laws, our act is not about the civil remedy, it's about the signal of engaging in a higher sovereign and removing that legal impunity. Now our goal for our evidence indicates it is not simply a shortcut to 50-state enforcement, but rather the symbol of national citizenship has a unique meaning in American history. It was the basis of the civil rights movement that they formed their strategies at the national level, which is the reason why there was the Civil Rights Act. And our goal for our choice also indicates it would be like engaging in dismantling slavery plantation by plantation. It simply can't capture the signal that national citizenship has a unique place in American history. The permutation debate, our 1ar resident evidence, which is their 1NC resident evidence, will 1SC debate. It says that there is no single jurisdiction which you should put your faith in, which is also the argument that McKinnon makes. But the denial of rights is always easier when there's one group which can deny them, but rather when you have multiple sovereigns to play against each other, it makes it easier to make those demands, which is the reason why the permutation is not just double sovereignty. It is the only access to sovereignty. It also conceded that there is no link to their dissent in the world of the permutations because if state citizenship is necessarily not exclusive, then we affirm state citizenship and affirm national citizenship only as a check against the exclusion of state citizenship. For instance, if a state wanted to exclude a certain group of people and say that you're not worthy of the privileges and immunities of our state citizenship, our form of national citizenship would be able to hedge against that. The patriarchy debate. I'll engage in the link debate to their dissent here. The first question I heard indicates that the state's imagery is necessary key to challenge the public-private by framing it as an issue of national concern. I explained this argument with our goal for evidence earlier, which is the reason why national citizenship is distinct from state citizenship. Our Provenstian evidence indicates that we would be able to cast it as ethical, it is evolving, and mutable, it is a moral relationship, which is versus argument. You should conceive of the act as care, not as violence, which means that their impacts are not make sense in our framework. Our UL Davis indicates it is a starting point, not an end point. That even though our demand may be contextualized in the realm of gender, it can spill over to things like racism, homophobia, etc. Our Balkan evidence answers their dissent, which was right. This evidence was right on the dissent because it says that Congress would be able to define new rights. It's not limited to what this court is defining status quo. Since the 1AC is necessarily active Supreme Court deference to Congress are cited evidence in the 1ar, which is read. Here can also win us debate because it's a court has empirically upheld the non-citizens get the rights that citizens get. They say that our emphasis in future predictive are West 7 answers that you should engage in the hope that the Supreme Court can change by placing the demand of equality. Of course, it means that citizenship can be used as a tool for inclusion if it's happened empirically, and their dissent is not unique. You should default to our framing down the citizenship debate. This is where the impact debate should occur. They make an us-them dichotomy. Well, their impact is indistinct from ours, and there's a reason why you need to focus on gender, which is our Peterson argument, that there's a certain type of us-them dichotomy which is necessarily global, that the accountability isn't captured by reinforcing the public-private egalitarian incentives, their whiteness argument, because we do not conceive of citizenship as necessarily white, but we conceive of citizenship as an affirmative obligation not to dominate or subordinate, etc. Our card 7 says that we view it as some sense of equality, not simply political rights. They say try or die, but their impacts are not distinct from ours, which is the reason why a risk of assault, or the permutation would be able to capture most of the original link. You should default to our argument. They make the argument how you can't redeploy our West 7 tenses argument. You should engage in an act of hope by breaking the bonds of the Supreme Court being tied to the status quo. They say that this argument about local politics, but the counterplay links to the dissent because state politics are empirically a tool for exclusion. That's where the immigration battles happen, and they're still the United States of America, which means they do not capture their global articulation. They make an argument about national identity. Our technical evidence is necessarily a global demand, but not limited by our oceans. This is also proven by our 1AC rule of law, human rights watch happens. So we are demand tied to women's equality everywhere, not limited by the United States. And make an argument about that's fine.